Tash. I have with me Dr. David Hayward. Um, David, what uh, what are your qualifications when it comes to this stuff?
Sure. Well, my PhD is in social psychology, and I've done quite a lot of research in the past related to mental health and religion in particular, in addition to various other areas. But I think that's what's germane to our discussion tonight.
Okay, have you even been published though?
Yes, I have over 100 publications in total, and quite a lot of those are in this general field, we'll say.
Yep, I'm looking here. Religion and life satisfaction worldwide, the role of government regulation, religion and strategies with coping with racial discrimination amongst African Americans and Caribbean blacks. Um, religion, mental health and well being, social aspects. Primary author on that one, of course. Lots of citations here. But let's move on here. I need to go back to, takes me a moment to get all that out. And we are going to share instead a conversation. Now, I wanted to go over this because I think it is a good example of where people wildly misuse social justice language. It's not that the concepts, the language is bad in itself. It's when people don't really grasp it, but they try to apply it anyway. And this is a conversation I had on Discord. I'm not going to say which place on Discord or who it was with, but this is a spiritual forum on Discord. We'll say that, or paranormal or whatnot. And the case here is we have a moderator, and we had somebody come in who immediately identified themselves as having schizophrenia. Here we go. It's gonna look weird when I go through these, but they came in, said they have schizophrenia, and gotta move that out of the way. Yeah. All right. Said they have schizophrenia, wanting to get into the paranormal stuff. A moderator specifically encouraged them to, hey, there's nothing wrong, just, go into it. And it seemed reckless to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I reached out privately to them. Hey, you should not be encouraging her. Schizophrenia has been seen to have severe temporal effects. Here I link an article about those temporal effects that causes them to think things happened out of order or in the wrong period of time. Schizophrenia is not simply someone being exposed to paranormal phenomena. They think they see paranormal things because of the time issue, which can be measured in the lab. It isn't ideal for them to confuse natural things for being supernatural, nor is it ideal for them to be exposed to anything actually paranormal when their perception is impaired. David, your thoughts on, what just that part there?
Sure. Yeah, and it's important to understand that, of course, people who have schizophrenia are the victims of ableism, but this is not necessarily a case where that's what we're talking about. And the reason is that some of the hallmarks of schizophrenia are really delusions and hallucinations. So that is to say, having sensory experiences of things that aren't happening, and there are physiological reasons in the brain that we can see that are the causes of those experiences, not some kind of paranormal phenomenon. And delusions, which are uh, irrational beliefs regarding your relationship with the world. And both of these are things which certainly could be involved in this kind of case. So yeah, you're exactly right. Um, this is these are both kind of hallmarks of someone who would be experiencing schizophrenic hallucinations or delusions. Um, and although it's true that interpreting those things within a religious or a spiritual framework can be beneficial for people in some instances, that's certainly not something that you should be encouraging someone to do outside of kind of a very controlled therapeutic type of context.
Yeah, and so we move on. They say, "What?" I said, "I think you may be encouraging risky behavior with the girl in chat." How? She says she has schizophrenia, and it's not safe for schizophrenic people to be seeking out the supernatural. They have deficiencies in processing time. The experience of actual supernatural phenomena could very possibly worsen the condition and necessitate institutionalization. Now, I don't think anybody benefits from institutionalization. Do you think that, you know,
No,
intensive
I don't
coding?
think that anybody would make that statement.
No, but do you think that it would actually lead, that it could lead to a higher chance of being institutionalized if you're specifically seeking out such things and you have schizophrenia?
Well, it's interesting because I was looking up some of the research on the nature of people's schizophrenic delusions. Um, when I was kind of doing a little bit of background research for our conversation,
Hmm.
and it turns out that people who have a lot of religious content in their schizophrenic delusions, there's actually a uh, a correlation between having a lot of religious or spiritual content and a couple of things. The first is delaying seeking help, and the second is having worse symptoms and worse outcomes after seeking help. So certainly those are things that you would have to be concerned about when you're talking about encouraging somebody to interpret their experiences within that kind of framework.
So it is been proven to be potentially harmful to
There's definitely research out there that would support the idea that that if you have if you're experiencing that, it can be very much be a double-edged sword, because certainly if you're experiencing a lot of religious content in your delusions or in your hallucinations, that can be associated with lots of negative consequences.
Okay, so they respond. So unfortunately, I've just done some quick research. I believe it is absolutely safe for people with schizophrenia to partake in spirituality slash paranormal. No actual citation to what they saw. That being said, I do follow a creator who has schizophrenia and who has spoken about seeing their dead dad. I don't think it is wrong for people with schizophrenia or any disability to participate within the paranormal slash spirituality. Seems to me this person in the chat is differentiating their visions that people with schizophrenia see to paranormal, because I've heard the same stuff she is saying by other members, such as being scared of possession, not knowing guides, etc. That
Mhm.
seems um, A lot of neurodivergent people are very sensitive to the spirit world. I've met quite a few schizophrenics. DID, that's dissociative identity disorder. I know you know that. AUDHD, autistic attention deficit disorder, etc. Members who participated within the paranormal slash spirituality, even went as far as to have a healing journey and did shadow work. And also, I cannot ban this person or kick for going on their own terms to participate within the paranormal community. It is her choice and decision. And apparently, the research is a TikTok video from Beth Parker, psychic medium, who apparently has studied, schizophrenia extensively.
And I mean, it's certainly important not to not to erase people's autonomy just because they may be suffering from mental illness, but at the same time, we have a duty to be careful not to encourage people to do further harm in these instances. So it certainly there's this is not an area without its ethical dilemmas, but I think that it's a bit too much to say that we shouldn't be cautious as well.
Okay. And so I clarified, I'm not asking to ban, I'm asking you not to encourage it, i.e., don't cause the harm.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, don't actively participate in her harming herself. Even her last comment suggests the mental confusion of when she tasted blood or smelled fire because she does not process time properly. You smelled the fire, tasted the blood before, and it comes through at that moment because of the time. It not necessarily that's what happened, but that is very explainable by such phenomena. There is tons of documentation from peer-reviewed journals about how people with schizophrenia confuse everyday events with the supernatural because of this time issue. It is the particular condition, not the fact that she has a condition. DID doesn't make it more dangerous. That's just the mind splintering from trauma. ADHD doesn't make it more dangerous. Autism isn't necessarily even a disability. To which they respond, autism is a disability, and you can definitely smell things from the spirit world. I've smelled cigarettes, and my mom smoked. And I don't get what that has to do with, whether this particular person was doing that. It's not saying that's not possible, but it's highly likely it's explainable by her condition that she came forward and said she had. I am saying it isn't normally only people with very severe autism that make them nonverbal and stuff are properly classified as a disability. And their response, autism as a whole is a disability, whether severe or not. And let me, I think I have to scroll out a little bit. No, I think if I go all the way back here. Okay, so, and the issue isn't that you cannot smell things from the spirit world. It is that schizophrenics experience things that are not supernatural and ascribe it as being supernatural, as proven in the laboratory, because they run standardized tests where things happen in a particular order, but they don't recall that order correctly and think it's supernatural. And many autists are quite vocal that their autism isn't a disability. They just experience things differently. And have you experienced, have a knowledge of how autists see their autism?
Me personally?
Yeah. that you, or even in the studies or
Yeah,
whatnot?
I mean, yeah, certainly that's something that's been well studied. I also happen to be on the autism spectrum, and that's something that I can speak to personally, I suppose. Um,
Yeah.
but but yeah, I mean, the fact is that when we're talking about autism, this is but when we're talking about disability is always in relation um, to the way that society is set up, right? So when we're talking about what is disabling, it's a question of what you're able to do or not able to do. And a lot of people with autism spectrum disorders are not uh, are not necessarily disabled in their function in society because they're able to do things in society unless society places blocks in their way, and these are things that can be taken care of. When we're talking about conditions like schizophrenia, this is a little bit different, um, because it's very difficult to conceive of a way in which society could be set up in which the kind of fundamental conditions that pertain in schizophrenia would not be disabling, in which they would not cause limitations in one's life. So experiencing hallucinations, experiencing delusions, experiencing the other hallmarks of schizophrenia. Those are kind of the big ones that we've been talking about, but there are other things. It's difficult to imagine um, a situation in which you wouldn't need to treat those things in order to um, to function successfully in any society. So from that perspective, I think that we would be more comfortable calling that a disabling condition, which is certainly not to say that um, the experiences that people with schizophrenia have aren't valid in their own way, but they need to be understood within the context in which they occur, which is that these are fundamentally caused by things that are going on in the brain, right? So um, to to kind of stand outside that and say, well, this is just a difference of opinion, and maybe these hallucinations really are happening, or who are we to judge to say that experience wasn't on some level real, is not is it may come from a place of wanting to do a good thing, and recognize the humanity of the person who's having that experience, but ultimately um, it's not helping um, the person who's having that experience
Mhm.
to kind of reify it.
Yeah. And I did look here and I did some research beforehand because I know I had read on this before. Just a few things. We're not going to go through them all, but get an idea of what's going on about it. Here's an article from New Scientist magazine from 2005. Autistic and proud of it. And this is, talking about people who were autistic and don't think it's a disability. Another one from 2018, autism can bring extra abilities, and now we're finding out why. So we're talking about strengths. It's about being different and so on. Autism isn't a defect, and here's why we should embrace neurodiversity from 2020. Um, from The Guardian, autism doesn't have to be viewed as a disability or disorder from 2015. This is from a group called Autism 360. Autism is not a disability. Very, autists
Mhm.
speaking out very clearly. We're not disabled. Um, and then we have a fairly recent publication, I guess. What is 2014, autism itself isn't a disability, negotiating normal versus abnormal autistic identity. And stop sharing there. So there's definitely stuff, and I've seen people who are autistic who are definitely disabled by it, who have a severe form and they can't speak right. They can, yeah. I've seen 50-year-old autistic man who's acting like a kid. That's a severe form. Then there's people. You said you're autistic. I knew you were neurodivergent before this. I didn't know you actually had autism specifically, but I wouldn't consider you disabled at all. You're able to.
I appreciate that. I wouldn't consider myself to be disabled either, but some might differ. I don't know.
Yeah. So I want to stress that because of what we're going to get to with this, where the conversation goes. Briefly, and I do think it shows a little bit about misusing stuff here. Combo 3, allow this again. All right. They respond, I am an undiagnosed autistic. It's like, okay, you're undiagnosed. Are you about to speak for autistic people without getting the diagnosis? It runs in my family. My aunts, my 2 uncles were / are autistic. It is a disability, first of all. Second of all, schizophrenics can definitely experience things that are paranormal and be psychic. I am not enjoying this convo. There's a lack of evidence about this that I am being provided. Not only that, I feel is subtly ableist. Schizophrenics can experience paranormal. People with disabilities are sensitive to the paranormal. And absolutely, they can experience the supernormal or the paranormal. The problem is that they confuse things with that. And it bothers me that when autistics are speaking, being vocal, it's part of their activism that, hey, we're not disabled. And you're going to go speak over them as an undiagnosed autistic. It seems to be a problem. Yeah, but I responded. I gave you a peer-reviewed article on how the condition works. You were confused by that. If you want evidence on the condition leading to a high miscategorization of supernatural phenomena, I can provide plenty of sources, but they are going to be peer-reviewed journals. Hey, I can offer it, but I don't think you're going to comprehend it because you already told me you're not comprehending it. Because the way you worded it, I didn't understand it. Okay, so schizophrenics can experience paranormal things, but most that they attribute as being supernatural are not. How can you know what she is experiencing isn't paranormal? You aren't her and you are assuming, which is messed up. It's like when you cannot know and you know something is likely, you go with that. It's basic Occam's razor. When there is that, when schizophrenia has that proven track record that that's what it does, you don't want to mess with it. So I give another one: religion, spirituality, and schizophrenia review that goes into it. I give, here's one from, it's not a peer-reviewed journal, it's Slate magazine, but this is reporting on a study that has shown that people with, that they, when they hear voices, it's been shown to be, something that they are actually themselves speaking. And that's why they're hearing it sort of vibrating through their bones and they don't realize that it's happening. It's, that lowly sad.
Mm-hmm.
And then, supernatural beliefs, etological models, and help seeking behavior. Now, notice I'm offering these all at, between 9:10 and 9:14 and 9:15. I'm sorry, but I don't understand when reading these, none of the links. I'm not getting a clear message of what I'm supposed to get out of it. Okay, yeah, peer-reviewed journals do not spoon feed you information. They go into deep discussions of these things, which is what I warned you of. There is a high probability that everything she thinks has been supernatural was not supernatural, but rather a symptom of her conditions, is the gist of it. Showing her how to protect herself should be harmless, but encouraging her to seek out such experiences is likely to lead to delusions and eventual institutionalization, as in she may end up locked up in an asylum for years. But I don't think there is convincing you on this, as you're not able to comprehend the research. I'm just trying to prevent unintentional harm. Um, does it does what I'm saying seem reasonable to you here?
Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense. We're really talking about there are two kind of separate issues, and the first is one that's basically unknowable, but we can make a good guess, and that's what's really going on in this person's head. Is this some kind of genuine spiritual experience, or is this a hallucination or delusion with a neurophysiological cause? And we can guess that it probably is the latter, but we can't know for certain, right?
Right. Now,
But we have a pretty good guess because we know that this person has schizophrenia. And the second is what are the potential harms for this person, either kind of intrapsychically, just for their own well-being, or the social repercussions for this person. And I think that you're right to point out that to focus on the second of those, the social repercussions, um, because we know that if you're encouraging somebody to kind of engage in thinking that is going to go against uh, what society sees as normal, and is going to play into exactly uh, what ends up getting people with schizophrenia institutionalized, then it's a very predictable outcome that you're putting this person at risk for worsening their disability, worsening their condition, and doing exactly what you say, which is getting them institutionalized, which is exactly the outcome that nobody should want for this person, right?
mm-hmm.
So, um, that was exactly the right thing to point out, and exactly what anybody should be thinking of from a genuine social justice perspective, not from the kind of superficial perspective of um, um, kind of superficially maintaining the autonomy of the individual, whatever that might be, but thinking about what is the actual best uh, outcome for this person in society.
Mm-hmm. And would you encourage somebody who's diabetic to eat a bowl full of sugar? I think that laugh is a no.
I would not.
Would you encourage somebody with epilepsy to stare at flashing lights?
I think that would be a bad idea.
But are you an epileptic or have diabetes to suggest that to somebody?
I do not.
Okay, so you don't think that's ableist.
I do not think that is ableist.
Okay, and so they responded, okay, I don't agree with this. You are not her. You don't know what she's experiencing is paranormal or her symptoms. You are also not schizophrenic. People with schizophrenia can seek out into paranormal slash spirituality. This is actually harmful because you are dehumanizing those with schizophrenia as if they don't know the difference between an episode and paranormal. And I'm going to stop after that sentence before we move on. Isn't the problem with schizophrenia that they don't know when they're having an episode?
Yes, that is. I mean, that is precisely the problem. If they did know, then definition, they wouldn't. By definition, it wouldn't be a delusion if you knew it was a delusion. If you knew it was a hallucination, it wouldn't be a hallucination by definition. So,
Oh, I didn't realize that definition
so,
like that there.
so,
But
so this I mean, I want to be clear. I feel like this person is coming from, on some level, this person is coming from the right intention, but they're completely misunderstanding
how things work.
yeah, how things work. So I would give them at least a little bit of credit for having the right intent, but they've gone about it in
The road to hell could be
the
built
wrong
on good intentions.
yes. So,
Okay. Not only that, but you are not schizophrenic. You are making a very big claim. And of course, they're assuming I'm not schizophrenic. I'm not, but I never clarified that in any.
right.
I make a claim backed unanimously by those who study it. The very nature of illness is the inability to differentiate between reality and a faulty perceived reality. This is not an issue where identity plays in at all. Now, would you agree that it's unanimously backed by those who study schizophrenia that this claim would stand? Or do you know somebody who disagrees?
Certainly, anybody. I'm trying to think if I can think of anyone who would dissent with that notion. It's difficult to find complete unanimity on anything, but I mean there are maybe a few people who are not studying schizophrenia so much, but studying kind of mental health identities, who might almost come down on the same side that this person is coming down on, but they would certainly not be working within the mental health community.
Okay. Okay. Can you dumb that down? I don't understand. Actually, I understand. Okay. So I mean, I tried to dumb things down. I am not the best at that. It's something that I have to work on communicating, but I thought that was fairly simple. Then they responded, while that is true, people with schizophrenia are not that dumb. They can partake in spirituality, and if it's issued to the point that where they can't, they can choose not to. The creator I watch, who saw her dead dad, doesn't participate in spirituality. It's her option, and that itself doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me because you're speaking of a deity. They, by definition, are participating in spirituality. But, however, I don't think you or I should be speaking over what is okay and not okay with schizophrenics, as you are not schizophrenic. This only leads to dehumanizing and stigma. You don't know what's best for schizophrenics. Only through research, which I was showing the research, and they didn't understand.
Yes.
And so I said they don't have to have an intellectual disability to be capable of comprehending reality with that condition. You can have someone with schizophrenia and 180 IQ, and they will think things happen that never did happen. You're also wildly misusing the concept of listening to someone's experience here. It isn't dehumanizing, and I am relaying the research with what I am able to comprehend. I am working on a PhD currently, but you are telling me repeatedly that you do not understand. I am telling you what the research says. You do what you want. I did my part in trying to do good here and prevent harm. However, you are wildly misusing concepts that I have been dealing with since you were 3 or 4, and I've had academic conversations about. It is actually extremely insulting when you misuse concepts and terminology like that. Right now, you are impugning my moral character, though what you seem to have, through what you have seemed to have picked up in very casual settings. And we could stop because that's the end of the conversation where before they made so I can't contact them and they blocked me and all that fun stuff. Didn't bother telling me I was blocked. I'm like, well, where is it? Where is it? Looking all over. So anyways, I was looking through there and it seems that you're in agreement with me that there's no ableism there. It's, you know, trying to look out for the best interests of somebody maybe suffering and going to the moderator. This wasn't a public conversation, it's a private conversation. Hey, you may not want to be encouraging it specifically. It, I didn't go, out in the chat, hey, go away, block or ban or didn't ask the moderator to do that. Just said, hey, maybe don't actively encourage them to do something that may be harmful.
No, I think you did exactly the right thing. I think that, kind of more broadly, this type of it's clear that this kind of impulse comes from just kind of an overgeneralization of the idea that the only people who should be speaking for or studying a group are people who have the experience of that group, or at least we should foreground their experiences, and that makes sense with respect to to cultural groups, to ethnic groups, to certain types of groups. It it but all every just because something is a group or a label that we can put on something doesn't mean that it's functionally the same, and this is kind of an illustration of that, right? So if only people with schizophrenia were qualified to do research on schizophrenia, then research would not get done because not because people with schizophrenia are not capable or moral in some way, but because the conditions of the disease are such that it ultimately prevents people from being able to live the kind of lives where they're going to be able to conduct medical research programs, right? So, so that's something that breaks down when we're talking about this, and the same kind of thing applies when we're talking about applying ableism in this case. That's not to say that people who have schizophrenia can't be the victims of ableism, because they certainly can and certainly are. But this is not an example of that. You can have concern for the welfare of somebody without being without erasing their agency to look after themselves. And you have to, especially when we're talking about people who have mental illness or other types of illness or disabilities, and that's not insulting.
Particular perceptive condition. Because they're not feeding off of accurate information about what's happening. I mean, it's different than, say, depression or anxiety, which are mental conditions which don't cause that problem, it just causes, distress or lack of motivation type stuff.
They do cause disorders in perception, but in a different way. So I think that the discourse in those areas would be extremely different. Some of the same considerations would still come up if somebody is in the middle of a major depressive episode. Then you wouldn't it would be irresponsible to tell them to have complete control over their own decision making in some circumstances in the same way. not in this circumstance, but like in other ways, right?
Yeah, and I think it's really important to you have to understand the concepts in detail, not just about the conditions, because that's the big part of this particular argument, but understand why you are listening to people who are this way before you talk about them. If you're speaking about Black people, you want to understand what Black people feel about whatever aspect you're speaking of, because they have unique insight.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and even though the schizophrenics may have unique insight, they're not going to realize that it's insight that they have because they think it's real, as opposed to, well, this is what happened. So when you're researching it, you're going to listen to people with schizophrenia to get behind, okay, well, you're saying that this happened and you notice this and this. You might be able to put something together by listening to them.
Yeah.
But
But that would absolutely be the component, a component of any responsible program of research, would be talking to the people who are impacted by it and doing that kind of qualitative research. But it's always going to be interpreted through, it's not going to be uncritically accepted, especially when we're talking about people who we know have these kind of perceptual issues.
mm-hmm. Yeah, and when you're, a big part of it is, if I'm observing what's happening to Black people, for example, I I do not have all the information. I'm going to pass over something and not think it's important. When they're sitting there, it's like, I've lived, you know, 30, 40 years, and this is what happens whenever I see this. I know that the cops are looking at me this way, or
Mhm.
whatever the case may be. Something that I'm not going to say. I'm still not going to take it uncritically, even there. But I'm listening, so I know to look out for it, and I can understand it. And I very well may say, oh, I think that's probably the case, just by hearing it, because it makes sense. Um, and unless something dislodges that, I'm going to see it. But the point of it is not to close on your mind. Just let them speak, and that's the end of the story.
Mhm.
Especially because it has that problem of assuming people are monoliths. Um, if you ask a Black person about an issue, you can find another Black person who disagrees completely, whatever that issue is. There's somebody out there. There's Kanye West if you can't find someone else. But you're trying to get your mind around the subject by listening. You're not just simply taking it. And I think there's also the issue that you don't want to um, just take whatever you hear and just run with it. Because a lot of this seems to be, they took it extremely dogmatically, without understanding where this is coming from.
Yes.
And that's a necessary harm if you're not specifically studying that aspect, thinking about it deeply. It's impossible to encompass all of human knowledge in one person. So you're not going, even a scholar in a different field isn't going to fully grasp this is why this is done this particular way until they actually start studying that field. And when you take academic research and you funnel it down, each level it gets a little blander and more dogmatic, and it becomes a problem when it gets so dogmatic that it defeats its own purpose.
Yeah, the fact is these are, extremely nuanced and complicated questions, and they defy this kind of reductionism, right? So
Mm-hmm.
so that's where it goes.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess that's essentially it. I want to stress to anyone watching, make sure you don't oversimplify things. Um, don't look at somebody who is actually analyzing it on a deeper level and attack them for it because you think that the solution has already been found. Because solution, we have no idea if the solution to anything has been found. We just radically change positions when better thoughts and facts come out normally. Everyone thought the universe was one way before Einstein, and then Einstein came in with relativity, and he had to go fight for it and make tons and tons of arguments, but he was able to eventually, through bringing observational data that his theory could explain and the current theory couldn't, was able to to show, hey, things are different here. And that happens in every field, usually not with just one person, but ideas change with new results. And that includes in the social fields where you can get somebody who has a better way of looking at this or that. So don't take things dogmatically. Take the effort to try to grapple with the why. Because I know one thing that I hate, and I've told people several times, hey, I agree with you on that because you're trans. It'll be a trans issue. It's like, that's not a reason to agree with me. I disagree with tons of trans people about trans issues. Just because I say it doesn't mean that. And it's telling me that they're not stopping to think about it. They're just taking it. And if somebody could be turned to your side that easily, they could be turned away from it just as easily. So if you want to be a real ally, take the effort to understand what is going on before attacking like that. But any closing thoughts, David?
This is a fascinating topic, and this really sits at the intersection of a lot of interesting questions. Whether we're talking about mental health or spirituality, or like you've been getting into the philosophy of science. So it's just a great illustration of what you can find when you scratch the surface.
Well, thank you for your time here. And I will see you probably sometime in the next few weeks offline.
Alrighty.
All right.
Yeah.
Have a good day. And just to clear up, I'm not going to release what this was involving, other than to the person whose Discord this was about. I don't think that they have any direct knowledge of what went on, to be honest, and I don't think that the admin had any ill intent. They meant to do well. They just failed at it by being a bit too dogmatic. And I think this is an important thing, though, to be discussed all around, because we all face this issue. And one of the biggest issues that comes from when you are dogmatically applying social justice concepts is you turn people against social justice. If people just simply feel attacked because you are describing, let's say, privilege as something that makes somebody bad, as opposed to something that people can't affect whether they have or not, and helps us illuminate how society functions and helps us see the way to alleviate those problems. Well, you're preventing the solution from happening. So make sure that you're thinking about things thoroughly and not just going based off of something you heard. Make sure you're thinking. Just because you heard me say something or you heard David say something, and David's definitely got the credentials, doesn't mean that you want to just run with it. Make sure you've taken your best effort to try to understand it. If you see a reason why it's wrong, then you run with that. And when we go into these issues and we work constructively, we can come to a better understanding. And that can include people, the person who is who is the expert, can learn things from the non-expert in the questions that they ask, in the objections they have, if they are done constructively. So that is my word for you today. I will be back. I am off for the summer, other than my actual 9 to 5 job. So I will be doing a lot more of these streams. I will be able to get around to editing that Thomas Jefferson video that I haven't had the time to edit. And I have plenty more that where that comes from. I'm probably also going to release these streams a second time as videos, only because I've noticed that when you look at my page, you see like the 3 things that I've edited, and then you have everything else is under the live tab, so it doesn't look like I have any content when I do. So maybe I'll re-upload those as such. But thank you for watching, and hope to see you again